Week 16 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for this week. The first hitter, Manny Machado of the San Diego Padres. So Machado, the numbers aren't horrible this season, but obviously he's not playing up to full potential this year. 13 home runs, 52 RBIs, 45 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 262 average, and a 316 on base. And over the last month of the season, pretty much status quo for the most part. 6 home runs, 14 RBIs, 13 runs scored, a 268 average, and a 326 on base for Manny Machado. So right now, this Padre team, they're right in the thick of things at the wild card. Only a half game out of the last spot, and Manny Machado's got to get going for this San Diego Padre team. And throughout his career, for the most part, he's been a second-half player. July 19th at the Guardians, 0 for 4. July 20th at the Guardians, 0 for 5. July 21st at the Guardians, 0 for 3. And July 23rd at the Nats, 2 for 3 with a run. So right now, this Padre team, they've won 3 games in a row. But Manny Machado, I think, is going to start to break out and get things going because he's just too good of a hitter. And I don't think in one season he's going to drop off big time. Last season, a solid year, 30 and 91 with a 258 average. So right now, the batting average is on good pace for Manny Machado, but the home runs and RBIs are down. So right now, well, he struggled for the most part, especially the last 2 months of the season. He's a buy low candidate. I still think you're going to have to pay a decent price to get him on your roster, but obviously at a discount compared. He's playing up to numbers he's been doing throughout his career. Next hitter, Matt Olson of the Atlanta Braves. So what a free fall of a season it's been for Olson. And he's been on this list a lot this year on the season. 13 home runs, 44 RBIs, 41 runs scored, a 220 average, and a 300 on base. So the only positive pretty much with Olson is the on-base percentage is 80 points higher than his batting average. But last season, after coming off a monster year, 54 and 139 with a 283 average. Obviously, I didn't think he was going to do that once again, but still, I thought 35-plus home runs easily, you could pencil in Matt Olson. And it looks like he's not even going to get there, but right now, he's been one of the worst hitters in all fantasy baseball. In the last month, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a 136 average, and a 222 on base. So Olson, he just can't get anything going. I know the Braves, they lost Ronald Acuna a few months ago, but still, with all these talented hitters in the lineup, and then all of a sudden Olson to be non-existent for the most part in fantasy baseball, it's a little puzzling, but I still go out there and try to get him on my team because I believe Olson, he's got a big hot streak or 2 left in him before this season is out. And if you could get him pretty much for virtually a back end of the rotation pitcher in fantasy baseball, or another bat who's playing a little bit over his head, this will be the time to do it. Because like I said, if he gets on that hot streak, Olson, we've seen what he's done in the past week. He could carry a fantasy team for a month to 6 weeks. July 14th at the Padres, 1 for 4, running a rib. July 20th, a doubleheader versus the Cardinals, 0 for 8. July 21st versus the Cardinals, 0 for 4. And July 22nd versus the Reds, 0 for 3. So right now, well, Olson's done nothing, especially the last month of the season. He's a perfect buy low hitter because if he could just get that hot streak, 1 or 2 of them in the next couple weeks here, I think he can help fantasy owners in a big way and pay dividends. The next hitter, Jonah Heim of the Texas Rangers. So Jonah Heim last season, he was solid for this Ranger team. 18 homers, 95 RBIs, and a 258 average. But this Ranger team this season, they just don't have it after winning the World Series and possibly a hangover. Well, they just got hot at the right time. But anyway, this season for Heim, 9 home runs, 40 RBIs, 33 runs scored, a stolen base, a 237 average, and a 286 on base. In the last couple weeks, only 1 homer, 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored, a 172 average, and a 250 on base. Heim, he's pretty much hasn't done much over the last couple weeks. And even for the season, even though I still believe he could get to that 20 home run mark, possibly his Heim with 9. And catcher, for the most part, batting average, I don't think is a huge deal for a catcher because if they could show power and drive in runs like Heim did last season with the 95, that's a great trade-off, I believe. He really hasn't done much, Heim. He's even been dropped in 5% of fantasy leagues over the last couple weeks. And if you just want to add him off the waiver wire as well, he's available right now in 43% of leagues. July 20th versus the O's, 0 for 1. July 21st versus the O's, 1 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs. July 22nd versus the White Sox, 1 for 4, an RBI. And July 23rd versus the White Sox, 0 for 2. So like I said, this Ranger team, for the most part, they've struggled all season. I know they've won 3 games in a row now, but 2 of them are versus the White Sox, who are one of the worst teams, versus the White Sox, who are the worst team in the league. So right now, if you need catching help, and Heim, like I said, he's pretty much hasn't done much or made an impact this season for the most part for fantasy baseball. I think he could turn things around a little bit, and he's a buy low hitter this week. And next hitter is his teammate Adolis Garcia of the Texas Rangers. So Garcia, just like Matt Olson, he's been on this list a lot this season, and he struggled mightily as Adolis Garcia. I know he's got the 17 homers, 47 RBIs, but pretty much the last 2 months of the season, he's been non-existent as well. So 17 homers, 47 ribs, 47 runs scored, 8 stolen bases, a 206 average, and a 273 on base. But the last month of the season, 4 home runs, 6 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 9 runs scored, a 182 average, and a 265 on base. He's struggling mightily right now, is Adolis Garcia, and he just can't get anything going for fantasy owners or this Ranger team. After last season, he had a magical postseason run and helped this Texas Ranger team win the World Series, but his power numbers are way down. He had 39 last season, only 17 this season, 47 RBIs where he had 107 last year as well. And obviously we always knew he was a high strikeout guy and not a great average guy, but in terms of power and RBIs, the last few seasons he brought it. So right now, like Matt Olson, we've seen Garcia in the past go on tears where he has a big month or two and really could carry fantasy owners, and those stats go way up. So right now, while he hasn't done much, a back into the rotation pitcher possibly could get a deal done, or another bat. July 20th versus Baltimore, 0-for-4 on RBI. July 21st versus the O's, 1-for-4. July 22nd versus the White Sox, 0-for-4. And July 23rd versus the White Sox, 1-for-3 with an RBI and a stolen base. So pretty much he hasn't done much as Adolis Garcia. And right now, while the numbers are way down and he's had minimum production, he's a buy low hitter this week. And the fifth and final hitter I look to buy and trade for is JD Martinez of the New York Mets. So this New York Mets team, they've played pretty solid over the last month and a half here. And JD Martinez, he was hitting the baseball well, but he's totally fallen off over the last month now. In the season, 10 home runs, 40 RBIs, 28 runs scored, 260 average, and a 343 on base. But the last month, after he was hot for a month or two, after he got called up, where he had an extended spring training signing late going into the season, the last month, a homer, 8 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 184 average, and a 308 on base. Obviously, he's still getting his walks. He's still finding different ways to get on base. But just the power and the batting average have been way down over this time for JD Martinez. But I believe he's going to get things going once again. He's too good of a hitter. And last season, I know he was in a monster lineup with the Dodgers, 33 and 103. And the Mets lineup isn't what the Dodgers lineup was last season. But this Mets lineup is still a pretty solid one, I believe, here. July 20th at Miami, 1-for-4. July 21st at the Marlins, 1-for-4 in RBI. July 22nd at the Marlins, 2-for-4 with a run. And July 23rd at the Yankees, 0-for-4. So pretty much non-impact it's been for JD Martinez. Well, we know he's a home run hitter, an RBI player, but he just hasn't brought any of that over the last month of the season. So right now, well, he's been virtually non-existent as well for fantasy owners. I believe you could buy him on a big discount this week, like a Matt Olson and Adolis Garcia. This is the time to go out there and get Martinez, because if Martinez get things going, we know he's a hitter as well that's going to help in many categories when he's right. So that's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for week 16 of the fantasy baseball season.